Does President Obama condemn Israel's raid of the aid ship headed to Gaza?
Well, Ben, let me simply restate what the international community and the United States supported early this morning at the UN Security Council through a presidential statement. The Security Council deeply regrets the loss of life and injuries resulting from the use of force during the Israeli military operation in international waters against the convoy sailing to Gaza. The Council in this context condemns those acts which resulted in the loss of at least 10 civilians and many wounded, and expresses its condolences to their families. The Security Council requests the immediate release of the ships as well as civilians held by Israel.
So that would seem to cover President Obama's personal feeling as well. Some of the allies are looking for a stronger statement from him directly.
Well, this is supported not just by the United States, but by the international community.
And does the president feel like he is still in a position of gathering facts about what happened, or have you ascertained enough to
the Security Council, the statement that I read calls for an investigation that is prompt, impartial, credible, and transparent, conforming to international standards of exactly what happened. And we're obviously supportive of that.
Is the president considering at least backing international calls to lift the blockade on the Gaza Strip by the Israeli forces?
Well, look, obviously, as we have said before, we are concerned about the humanitarian situation in Gaza and continue to work with the Israelis and international partners in order to improve those conditions. And as the UN Security Council statement says, obviously it's an untenable situation.
Should the blockade be lifted?
Again, we're working with those to improve the humanitarian conditions. I do think it's helpful to understand that this is a blockade of to not allow weapons to get into the hands of Hamas.
Humanitarian aid.
And we have said that, well, I'll just leave it at that.
And what are the president's concerns that the Gaza flotilla incident is poison the atmosphere to the extent that indirect talks between Israel and the Palestinians won't go forward? Will there be delay of some sort here?
Well, look, I would say, obviously, the president spoke on 3 occasions yesterday with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and obviously we regret that, but understand completely why he went back to Israel and had to cancel the meeting. The schedule for Mr. Abbas coming is still the same, and we think more than ever we need a comprehensive Middle East peace plan.
Is the president concerned at all that after all his work to repair relations between the U.S. and the Muslim world, that a situation like this destroys it overnight?
The U.S. relationship with the Muslim
world? The U.S. relationship with the Muslim world by standing so steadfastly with Israel?
No, again, I would point you to, I think it was a pretty clear statement by the international community that the United States...
I mean, it condemns acts that were taken that led to the loss of life, but it doesn't say whose acts. It could have been the flotilla's acts, or it could have been the IDF's acts. It's not clear from that statement.
Well, I think our opinion is this is a pretty clear statement, and obviously...
Whose acts are you talking about in that statement? Is it the IDF, or is it the...
Again, we're talking about a series of facts that will be determined by an appropriate investigation, as I just said.
Okay, so there's no specificity as to whose acts it's condemning.
Well, it may be of information as to exactly how this went down that the rest of the international community may not be completely clear on, Jake. But again, I'm saying, and let me get...
You don't even know what if you don't know what happened.
We can play circular ball all day long, Jake. Obviously, we condemn the loss of life and we regret it deeply. I think that is knowable, correct?
That's
correct. Okay, good. So I would simply say, reiterate what is in the statement. In terms of our relationship with the Muslim world, I think the president has obviously spent a lot of time on improving our relationship with countries throughout the world, and and special time and care on our relationship with the Muslim world. I do not think that this will have a great impact on that.
Our initial reaction to this flotilla massacre, deliberate massacre, an international crime, was pitiful. What do you mean you regret when something should be so strongly condemned? And if any other nation in the world had done it, we would have been up in arms.
Well,
what is this sacrosanct, ironclad relationship where a country that deliberately kills people
Well, again,
and boycotts, and we aid and abet the boycott?
Look, I think the initial reaction regretted the loss of life as we tried and still continue to try to gather the relevant. Nothing can bring them back, Helen. We know that for sure, because I think if you could, that wouldn't be up for debate. We believe that a credible and transparent investigation has to look into the facts, and as I said earlier, we're open to international participation in that investigation.
Why did you think of it so late?
Why do we think of?
Why didn't you initially condemn it?
Again, I think the statements that we released speak directly to that.
Was it appropriate, do you think, does the administration think, for a humanitarian ship to attempt to break a blockade?
Look, I'm not going to get into the international law implications of all this, Savannah. I think the administration and the international community has spoken on the actions and look forward to a full accounting of the facts.
So rather than the U.S. having an independent reaction, you're aligning yourself entirely with the UN Security Council's statement. Does that mean the U.S. ratifies and accepts everything coming out of the Security Council in this regard?
Things we vote for, yes.
So,
I mean, if we supported what came out of the UN Security Council.
So verbiage about there being a humanitarian crisis in Gaza and
yes.
the blockade needs to be looked into.
We don't only support the first several paragraphs. We supported and voted for the entire resolution. Yes.